All right, good morning, everyone. We'll get started. Let's have our prayer and Pledge of Allegiance. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for this beautiful day. We thank you for the change in weather. It keeps things interesting. We just ask for your protection from freeze damage around here and ice. We just pray, Lord, and thank you for the completion of the elections process. We're grateful for Leonard and his staff and all the volunteers and the work that they do. We just ask your guidance over this meeting, and just please bless our weekend. In Christ's name, amen.
Amen. Amen.
I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Chris Basham has asked for a few minutes here, not on any particular construction issue, but no, rather than, Leonard, I'm going to let you go ahead and go, and so that you can go back to your day. And I don't, Chris just needs a few minutes, but you can go ahead since you're the only one on the agenda. Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
Before I read the results, I'd just like to report we had November 4th election started with 15,988 registered voters. We had 5,239 ballots cast in this election. 32.77% turnout in this election.
How's that compare?
It's a little low from 4 years ago. We had 39 provisional ballots. 6 of those were because of ID problems. 33 were other reasons. Hereby counted 8 of those provisional ballots. I, Leonard Rockwell, election administrator in Titus County, do hereby certify that the foregoing is the true and correct tally of the votes cast in the general election held November 4th, 2014, as tallied by the 650 ballot scanner, the M100 precinct county. I further certify that the 3 required tests of automatic tabulating equipment as required by section 127.093 Texas Election Code were conducted, and all were successful. Made this the 14th day of November 2014. Summary of precincts returns for the general election of November 4th, 2014, Titus County. Straight party votes: Republicans 1,447, Democrats 744, Libertarians 10, Supreme Party 7. U.S. Senator John Cornyn 3,812, David Allen 1,146, Rebecca Paddock 101, Emily Spicy Brown Sanchez 31, write-in 5. U.S. Representative 4, John Ratcliffe 3,615, Governor Greg Abbott 3,802, Wendy Davis 1,288, Katie Glass 49, Brandon Palmer 16, 7 write-ins. Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick 3,732, Letitia Vanderhook 1,211, Robert Butler 109, Courtney 16. Attorney General Ken Paxton 3,545, Sam Houston 1,412, James Balagia 72, Jamar Osborne 17. Comptroller of Public Accounts Glenn Hager 3,408, Mike Collier, 1,395. Ben Sanders, 124. Dale Chateau, 24. Commissioner of General Land Office, George T. Bush, 3,610. John Cook, 1,300. Justin Knight, 116. Valerie, 32. Commissioner of Agriculture, Sid Miller, 3,482. Jim Hogan, 1,385. David, 75. Kenneth Kendrick, 43. Railroad Commissioner, Ryan Sidney, 3,422. Steve Brown, 1,343. Mark A. Miller, 159. Martinez, 40. Chief Justice Supreme Court, Nathan Hatch, 3,471. William Moody, 1,365. Tom Oxford, 112. Justice Supreme, Place 6, unexpired. Jeff Brown, 3,586. Lawrence Edward Myers, 1,260. Mark Ash, 112. Justice Supreme Court, Place 7. Jeff Bard, 3,598. Gina Benavides, 1,215. Don Fulton, 127. Charles Whiteberg, 25. Justice Supreme Court, Place 8. Phil Johnson, 3,821. Robert Koch, 289. Jim Chisholm, 179. Justice Criminal Appeals, Place 3. Bert Richardson, 3,488. John Granberg, 1,280. Mark Bennett, 159. Justice Criminal Appeals, Place 4. Kevin Patrick, yearly, 3,707. Quantum Parker, 454. Judith Sanders Castro, 143. Justice Criminal Appeals, Place 9. David Newell, 3,799. William Brian Strange III, 359. George Joseph Augitt, 124. State Representative, District 5, Brian Hughes, 3,973. Ron Walton, 392. Justice 6 Court of Appeals, Place 3, Ralph Burgess, 3,944. District Judge, 276 District, Robert Ralston, 4,144. County Judge, Brian Lee, 3,978. District Clerk, Deborah Appleton, 3,205. County Clerk, Joe Newman, 4,019. County Treasurer, Sheriff Creed, 3,180. County Commissioner, Precinct 2, Chris Shelton, 462. Mike Fields, 658. County Commissioner, Precinct 4, Jimmy Parker, 1,181. Paul R. Lindsay, 491. Justice of the Peace, Precinct 134. Diane R., 1,738. K. McNutt, 2,273. Justice of the Peace, Precinct 2, Tim Blair, 493. Paula Dyke, 621. Constitutional Amendment 1, for 3,065, against 1,004. Also included in the package of precinct results, and also what we call an election summary results, which shows how many was early, how many by mail, and so forth. So, if you have any questions on those, be glad to answer.
Give them just a second, see if they anybody have a question. Any problems this go around? Anything you've learned? Anything we need to help you fix?
I didn't experience any new problems. It's, showing that people don't do this every day. Most of our judges are, senior citizens, so we, had a few problems on election day. We still need to get the word out about the ID, I guess. Some of these people, I think most of them, that had ID problems, didn't vote in the last election because they're required not to two elections. But it seems that people still not understanding about the ID problem. But, we had a couple that had ID, but they expired more than 60 days, and so they were unable to vote because the ID had been expired for more than 60 days, so they were unable to produce. They have 6 days to come. Maybe if the driver's license expired, they got a passport, the vote could be counted. Nobody out of the 6 showed up in the kind of ID. We do have relation to election. We've got a couple of polling places that we're going to have to change and have requests to get other places. So this will be help on that. Find those 2 locations for box 17 and also box 7, which is in Chapel School. So they requested that we look for us another place there.
So you're saying 6 people were unable to vote that showed up?
6 because of ID. We had 39 provisional ballots, which means that they showed up to vote. There was a question about where they were registered. Some they weren't able to qualify for the regular ballot, so they voted a provisional, which gives us a chance to examine what the problem was. And after examining those 39, only 8 were counted out of 39.
And the others were because, what was the typical reason? They were not a valid registered voter?
Well, some had registered late with the DPS and didn't get them in. Some thought they had registered with the DPS, but when we inquired with the DPS, they have a website that we go to, we put the person's name and information in, and the DPS respond back to us and let us know if they check the box, if they want to be registered, or did not check the box. And some of them did not check the box if they wanted to be registered. And then sometimes, I don't know what time of the day they show up to vote, some provisional voters, but sometimes they show up in the wrong box, but they want to vote, so they go ahead and vote, even though they look them up and tell them that they had the wrong box, but they decided they don't want to go anywhere else, and they all put provisional ballot, and they vote provisional. We had about 3 like that were registered in other boxes, but they showed up on election day in the wrong box, and opted to go ahead and do the provisional ballot.
Leonard,
Go ahead.
I had some situations come up out at box 4, and because of that Pittsburgh address, I had one young lady, this was her first time to vote, and she called me and she said, I'm not going to get to vote. I'm registered, but they've got me registered in Camp County. And I said, well, I told her to come to your office, and she's going to, but it just wasn't her, that we had several because of that Pittsburgh address. And I told them to come see you and see if they could get that straightened out. But she was really disappointed. She was wanting to vote. She did everything she was supposed to, and of course it had that Pittsburgh address. And I guess she filled out the card and sent it, and it automatically went to Pittsburgh because of the Pittsburgh address. They took it to the that area, but that's something we need to kind of watch. And but anyway, she's supposed to be voting in Leesburg, because of that address. So I don't know. I don't know if there's, I know it should have had Titus County. They live in Titus County, but we have probably 100 homes down in there that's got a Pittsburgh address.
Yeah, that's always, somebody always come in as close to that line and end up not going to the proper place because of that boundary line. They think they're on one side and on the other side. But hopefully she was able to go to Pittsburgh, both as she's registered in Camp County.
She was registered in Kemp County, but she didn't go to
Okay.
Kemp County and vote.
Now, there is we have about eight people that voted what we call a limited ballot. If they show up doing early voting and they have moved from another county or registered to vote in another county, then we can offer them whatever would have been available on that ballot in the county they were registered in. But they couldn't vote on any local races.
Well, this is, she was born in Titus County, raised in Titus County, and she filled out her voter restoration card, and I guess she mailed it at her house. And the mail carrier, I guess, took it to the office over in Kemp County. I don't know, but it did have a Pittsburgh address, and that's where they put her.
If we get in like that, the mail is not in our jurisdiction. By law, we have to talk to the proper county, so the proper.
Well, I told her to get a hold of you in that way, and anybody else. But, she was just disappointed because this was her first time to get to vote. And I told her to come to your office and you'd help get it straightened out.
If somebody were to show up during early voting and didn't have a current ID, could they go to DPS and get their new paper copy and bring that back and be able to vote?
They could, yes, that's true. They could actually go ahead and vote a provisional ballot, and they got 6 days after the election is over to produce that ID. And also, at some of the nursing homes, I made them aware that there is a provision of exemption if you are disabled, if you have a 50% disability rating, but you have to have a certification from Social Security or the Veterans Administration showing that you are at least 50% disabled, then you can get an exemption from showing a photo ID. And that's what one of my cases was at the nursing home. And a couple of gentlemen that were registered to vote, they had a driver's license when they went into the nursing home, but then they didn't renew them because they wouldn't drive. And they had expired within 60 days. So we're hoping that we can, make the administrators of the nursing home where they can file an exemption if they have the documents that show that they have 50% disabled and get the exemption. Want to worry about trying to renew the driver's license while they're in the nursing home so they can vote.
All right, anyone else have a question for Leonard?
I make a motion to accept the
Motion by
canvass of
Commissioner
votes.
Hockaday to accept the report of Leonard Rockwell on the vote from the November election.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Hinton. All in favor of approval, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Leonard, thank you very much to you and your volunteers. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, that's the only item I have on the agenda. Chris, we'll give you a few minutes. No action to be taken on this, and you're not discussing any construction projects today?
Yeah. I had a conversation with Commissioner Riddle yesterday, and he brought up some good points, and I felt compelled to get with the court. Al said some things to me. He said, I don't know who you are. I don't know where you come from. I don't know why you're so interested in this stuff. And I got thinking about it. It's like, well, maybe he's not the only one that is in that position. And then maybe I haven't had the opportunity to let you guys know who Chris Passion is and where I come from and why I'm here. I was born in Lake Charles, Louisiana. I was the first baby born in that hospital. And the only reason I put that on there is because I get kidded all the time because when my dad and my father that first day, I was the first baby born in. The hospital offered a ham and a turkey equal to my weight. When I was born, the doctor, my dad was saying, 12, 15 pounds, he was rooting for him. My mom said if I was that big, Southeast Texas area. My grandfather was known for all of his bids ending in 77 cents, only because he lost a bid one time by $1, and you can always tell a Miller bid when it came in for all the price he gave. He built a lot of churches in Lake Charles, Louisiana. Probably half the churches in that town were built by my grandfather, as well as the Civic Center there. But they all ended in 77 cents. I graduated valedictorian, Sulphur High School, Sulphur, Louisiana, played football in the band. My favorite story there was my high school coach was an ex-Marine drill sergeant, and I kept asking questions. He'd tell me how to get down in stance to go after the tackle, and I'd ask questions, and I was trying to put physics to it and trying to figure out why that worked that way. And he always would tell me in front of everybody, swap your brains with a monkey, and I'd be cheating the monkey. And I got that all the time, but yes, it didn't work out quite that way. I got multiple scholarships for football, academics, and ROTC. I attended Louisiana Tech University of Russell, Louisiana, got a degree in architecture with ROTC. I entered the Air Force after that ROTC degree in 1979. Shortly after my first assignment, the Air Force selected me to go get a master's degree in engineering management. Went to the Air Force Institute of Technology, where the first program in engineering management was actually ordained by the Engineering Board of the United States. And there I think there's about 14 or 15 programs that offer a master's degree in engineering management. Entered as a second lieutenant, was 10 years active duty, 13 years in the reserve, and retired in 2002 as a lieutenant colonel. When I went in, I was going in as a pilot. The Air Force initiated a program called the Quality of Life Initiative. They were having problems with retention after they gave up the draft in the Vietnam War. They decided that they would improve the places where people lived, worked, and played in the Air Force. And their first move was to go comb the guys that were in school in ROTC, find the architects and the interior designers, and made me an offer to give up my pilot slot to be an architect in the Air Force, which I took and chose. As an Air Force architect for those years, I served as chief of design and chief engineer in several locations. I planned, designed, and managed construction of over 1 billion facilities around the world, including 2 new bases from the ground up, which was a fun thing to do. I've led 43 planning assistance teams. The Air Force put in place a program where they could take some skilled folks and offer to the commanders at bases around the world. We want some help in developing your base. We'll send a team in for a week. I would put a team of engineers, architects, and planners together, and we would get on the road and go spend a week with the commander addressing whatever issues he had. I did those things all over the world. You can see the different places there. I've got to see a lot of the world because of that duty. I've master planned over 100 military facilities and campuses around the world. I'm known in the Air Force as a lead planner for having done all of that. My funnest job in the Air Force was probably as chief engineer of the 307 Red Horse Unit. A Red Horse Unit is, there's about 7 of them in the world. We are an in-house design build firm with a worldwide mobile, a 400-person construction firm and all equipment, and we get on an airplane, go anywhere in the world within 48 hours and build runways and facilities or repair damage. And part of that was doing nation building and drug interdiction exercises. So we go in and build schools, to build goodwill in the countries, and we build clinics. At the same time, fixing an airfield so that the counter-drug operations can operate out of those airfields. That carried me a lot of places in the Caribbean and South America. Part of that Red Horse thing was leading damage assessment teams, where we'd go in and after hurricanes or any kind of natural disaster, but in preparation for it, there was actually in wartime, the enemy comes in and bombs something, somebody's going to come back in and assess whether the facilities are available to be used, and led several of the damage assessment teams. And then a flip side of that was also we were trained in base denial. So it's how to tear up a base. So if the enemy coming in could use it, and that was kind of some interesting things to learn there, how do you do base denial. I retired from the reserves in 2002 as a lieutenant colonel. As a registered architect over the last 24 years, I've worked for several firms, both large and small, engineering firms, where I was the only architect in the firm, architecture firms, pure architecture, and for the most part, AE firms. And an AE firm is an architectural engineering firm, a firm that's got in-house architects and engineers that all work together on projects. I served 7 years as a member of a handpicked Air Force Design Advisory Council, advising the Chief Engineer of the Air Force on policy matters related to designing and planning of facilities. At that point, I was a captain. I worked with 6 reserve colonels who all had private practices. The purpose of the advisory council was that the Air Force wanted to know how come we're spending more money and how come it's so hard to build facilities for the military versus the private practice. So we spent 7 years meeting once a quarter on different particular issues related to that so that the Air Force could get on board and become more private. One of the guys that I worked for, which was fun, was the guy that was head of Disney's Imagineering department. He was a reserve colonel, and so that was an unbelievable experience. I planned to design airports and airport facilities for 10 years. When I actually got out of the Air Force, I went to work for one of the colonels that I worked for when I was doing these planning teams in Arlington, Texas. Chuck Willis is probably the leading designer and planner of airports and in the region. While I worked with him, we developed and planned and designed 7 new airports, both in Texas, Oklahoma, and Mississippi. I've been doing design build for a long time, nearly $600 million in facilities for the Air Force, Army, and the Navy. I've done 30 projects that make up that $600 million, everything from something as small as $95,000 to the largest at $350 million, which was the data center for the Internal Revenue Service, the new data center that was just built in the Baltimore area. One of my favorite projects was the Warrior Transition Facilities, which are facilities that were after the people coming back from the Middle East. It was getting the soldiers transitioned back into the private world, and they built a whole bunch of these Warrior Transition Facilities. I was lucky enough to have the responsibility for building one in Fort Washoe, Arizona, the one in Fort Bliss in El Paso, and the one in Killeen and Fort Hood. I've won 7 Air Force Design Awards to include projects such as the new B-1 bomber base. That was one of the bases from the ground up. I did the update of the Air Force Academy Master Plan, won an award for that. The Kadena Air Base Housing Redevelopment, it was a $1.2 billion redevelopment of housing on that base, and 2 different awards for anti-terrorism, force protection, and infantry facilities after 9/11. There was some GWAT money, there was government war on terrorism. It was very fast-paced. We actually bid and won and constructed that project, and believe it or not, on 2 sheets of paper that went forward. And it was a whole lot of stuff after the fact, but there was a whole lot of trust involved between the Air Force and the design firm of how we did that. In fact, after 9/11, the rebuild of the Pentagon that was hit by the plane was done with 12 pieces of paper. And I only bring that up is that a lot of this goes back to trust and how whether you trust the folks or not. I've developed several successful community grants in North Texas, earning over $1 million for places like Grant City, Granbury, and Lucas, Texas. So it just, I know where to get the money in a lot of these cases, and I've done that and helped them get the grants. One of my favorite accomplishments is in 2012, I was indoctrinated as a fellow in the American Institute of Certified Planners, a large part because of all the work that was done before. That just basically puts me, there's only 400 of us nationwide out of about 40,000 planners that exist in the United States. And that was nominated, in large part, half of those nominations came from people that were local. Dr. Johnson at college, Troy Sellers here locally. A lot of those guys put some good work in Linda Hart for the work that I've done with them. On the personal side, I've been a beautiful, smart, and classy lady, and that's part of the reason I'm in Mount Pleasant. She was in Mount Pleasant born and bred. I met her in Madrid, Spain in 1985. She was over there. Some of you may know her. She was married to Irvin Gage, who passed away from cancer. A year later, she lost her 5-year-old boy to cancer. She had to get away, and she came over to Madrid, Spain, and I was fortunate enough to have met her in Madrid, Spain. We dated for maybe too long. 16 years, and I married Karen in 1999. She is a certified therapist and counselor and currently works at the Lakes Regional Counseling Center here in Mount Pleasant. I heard a lot of things about Mount Pleasant when I was with Karen. My first initiation in Mount Pleasant, she wooed me here. I was coming from Alexandria, headed back to Memphis, Tennessee, where my dad lived, and she wooed me to come in here and see the Christmas lights one year. And I did, and from then on we started dating. But the downtown Christmas lights are a pretty strong memory here, and that's one of the reasons I moved here. The other was that when she was going through all of her deals with Urban and Little Urban, this community did some stupendous things that I've never heard about. And so that, but this community actually named her Mother of the Year. You gave her a ring. And, anyway, we've got this hope in this community. In 2002, we bought one of McKellar Farms, Mark McKellar Farm out on 1001, and we've redeveloped it into Gage Farms, put a lot of money into developing the barns and the fences. But we raise and sell performance quarter horses, cutting and reining horses. We've got some top bloodlines, and we have horses around the world that we've sold over the last 12 years. Also got my start in cattle ranching, where we're crossing Red Angus and Charlotte cattle. And I've learned a whole lot of things about pulling calves and things I never knew anything about coming from the city. I have one daughter, Amy Catherine. She's 33 years old. Married, living in New Orleans with her husband, John, who own and operate Keith's Bottle Shop. It's a European vintage wine shop, and it was recently named Wine Shop of the Year for the state of Louisiana after their first year of business. It's a pretty special place. Since I've been in Mount Pleasant, just kind of some things that I've done here that you may know or not know. But in addition to the Chamber for the Industrial Foundation, it's one of the first projects that I did here in Mount Pleasant. I also did a strategic plan for the Chamber, working with a lot of folks here in the community. That strategic plan was called Smallville, the Making of Community and Superheroes. And that's actually the title of the book I'm working on, and I've actually briefed that to the Texas Municipal League, the whole history and the whole thing about small towns, and how you have to know people, and who you are is locked in when you're in a small town. You can hide in big cities and people not know who you are, but you can't do that in a small town. Just called the whole idea of what a community is and how to make it. Some of the other projects was the renovation for the MPISD administration building. That was done. Feasibility study for the redevelopment of the old Mount Pleasant High School gymnasium. Trying to help those guys get that turned into a gymnasium for the youth. And there's some grant money available for that. I'm working with one right now with the state of Texas to get that. Feasibility study for the Mount Pleasant Titus County Event Center. Working that in conjunction with Preeper. I'm trying to bring that event center here. Construction administration oversight of the college dorms, the new college dorms that were built. And then most recently, the bond program for the college. I was the guy that pulled together that program for that $19.9 million, doing an assessment of all their facilities, putting together the packages and the projects and the pricing, working with engineers to actually put that together so they have a plan forward once that bond does eventually get passed. And then I'm doing ongoing consultation right now with Preeper Complex Designs, where we're looking at arenas. We've got one in Children's right now that's under design. We'll be going under construction here shortly. And we've got some more in South Texas that we're looking at. Some non-local things that I've also done, facility assessment and capital improvement plan for Air Force Villages, which is a retirement village of over 1 million square feet down in San Antonio, Air Force Village 1 and 2. Plenty of renovations for Kirkland Air Force Base in Barstow, all done from here in Mount Pleasant. Stay on the road a lot. And then another fun project was the military working dog hospital. I never knew this before I got that project, but all military working dogs for state police, for the military, for the Border Patrol, they all go to San Antonio, Texas, where there's a full-fledged hospital to take care of these dogs and a breeding operation. They take care of over 700 dogs a day at this location. And I did the recovery rehabilitation teams on them. I'm currently working on architectural quality control at Fort Hood on a tactical equipment maintenance facility. I'm an expert witness for design, build, facility delivery in federal court cases. And last year I established a new company based in San Antonio called the Design Build Consortium with a buddy of mine of 25 years, Vietnam War vet, who's a service-disabled veteran, and I'm working with him, and we just won our first project down in San Antonio just a month ago, and John is extremely excited about it, but it's focusing on VA projects, working with VA. My goals in this community, this is my home. I've traveled the world. I'm tired of traveling the world. I'm tired of spending 26 hours on an airplane to go work in Okinawa. I'd much rather stay here and work. And so the projects that I've worked on for this court, I am extremely pleased to have that opportunity. What I want to do is help the county, in its redevelopment efforts and its expansion efforts. One of the things that we put forth in the small bill strategic plan here was to help facilitate growth in the region, improving the quality of life and the regional economy. And that's not just a goal that's stated. We have to figure out how to do it. And some of the things that I have listed here at the bottom are how we're working on right now. The county redevelopment projects I see as part of that. It helps the downtown, it helps the county, and it helps the whole image of being progressive in this community. I'm all about the preservation and development of what I call a community historic. There's a lot of things here that I don't think even some of you guys may know. I don't even know one of the oldest elevators is in the old hardware building on the corner over here, the Title building. If you haven't been over there, it's a pretty amazing thing. It's a whole floor that basically lifts. It was a hardware store that would lift up all of the goods and stuff in the second floor, which is unbelievably structurally sound, where they would store all the hardware and stuff on that, in that Title building. It's a pretty neat old thing. It's one of the first oldest elevators that was put in the country. Development of standards, I've done that around the world on these bases and stuff, and that's part of what I've been hired for, is how you set the standard to raise the bar. I'm all about encouraging and promoting the regional capabilities and businesses and selling the concept of a community and, more importantly, the reality of community. Because Mount Pleasant really does have a community spirit here. It's unbelievable. I've never seen it anywhere else, not even when I worked in Granbury, although I've got a taste of it there. I'm about the preservation and the regional expansion of college. I think that's just a foundational element on this community going forward. I spent a lot of time and a lot of breakfasts with Brad discussing philosophy of how we do this. And one of the things that he and I are working on is how do we get more folks like myself out of Dallas, professionals out of Dallas, to come and live in Mount Pleasant. And now with technology and stuff, we can do that. I've been working from my house for 20 years, and I couldn't do that if it wasn't for the technology and the internet. But I work around the world from Mount Pleasant, Texas. The Mount Pleasant Titus County Event Center, I think that may be the next big thing here. I'm in discussions right now, and we will be presenting very shortly back to the county and the city some new options. We've scaled it down from the $60 million that it was last proposed at to about 15 to 18. It is financially feasible. We've got developers that will pay for it, and we just need to get the community on board with what they really want out there. But the feasibility study that I did with Preferred actually showed that a $15 to $18 million facility would be feasible and would make money. And so we're trying to do that. And then another thing that I've been kind of quietly working in the background since I spent so much time with the VA, I've already had discussions with the VA in Washington and their facilities. They have regional clinics. We sit in Mount Pleasant and Pittsburgh area. We sit on the edge of what they call a VISN, which is a Veterans Integrated Service Network. And so when they do the planning for each VISN, they kind of lose the edges, and we sit on the edges of two of them. So I've been negotiating with them and talking with them about the possibility of putting the development program for two VISNs together, so we can actually get a VA clinic here. And I've had discussions with Region 8. That facility would be excellent for that. We've had several discussions in the past, and we're renewing those discussions right now about how we can get a VA center here. So I offer this, and if there's any other questions, there's a whole lot of history here, and I appreciate y'all's time on this, but I just wanted to let you guys know who I am, what I'm about, and I appreciate Commissioner Riddle for highlighting to me that, maybe I've been kind of going too fast, and you guys didn't know who I was or what I was about. And so I appreciate the opportunity, and open it up if you have any questions or want some additional information, I'd be more than happy to do that.
Well, a lot of stuff here I didn't know. Most of it I didn't know.
I knew a lot about you, but I didn't know you fooled with horses. That surprised me. But I'm really excited to hear that you're working on this VA clinic. We need it here bad, and you are right. We are on the edges. I had the opportunity to visit with Congressman Hall on this several years ago, and told him then we needed a VA center here. Everybody had to travel a pretty good distance to get there. We're centrally located, so it'd be an ideal place to put it.
The timing is good right now, too.
Yes.
The VA has been given a whole lot of money. They've been given $1.2 billion and to get spent and get the facilities out there. So politically, it's a good time. We just got to get the local, political, the regional, and the state political support to help bring that forward.
Well, I think it can be accomplished, but it's going to take a lot
Are
of
you,
work.
is that like an administrative building, or would it actually be a hospital to handle?
It'd be a clinic, an outpatient clinic. The closest ones right now are Tyler and Bonham and Dallas is a full hospital. Tyler is where most of the money right now in this region is going. It's going to Tyler Long. But that's still an hour's way away. Bonham's only 1 hour away. Dallas is a couple hours away. So.
How big would it need to be if it was in this area?
We looked at what's the 175,000 square feet. That's 175,000
Okay.
what the building. And I've been through it. It's got a lot of things with the interstitial space, which is the space between floors, so you can run all your medical equipment and your power and your communications. You can do that without destroying walls or floors because they built in what they call interstitial space, which is what hospitals look for. A clinic, a large clinic, medium to large clinic would be in the 75,000 square foot range, but 40 to 75,000 would be looked at. Probably easier to sell a small one, a 40,000 square foot clinic, but there are different sizes that offer different services. And, I've been talking with the Veteran Services Office here too, so we've been kind of toying with some ideas and approaches to it. I almost had a deal with Region 8. We offered to buy the Region 8 building by the VA. The VA was willing to buy the building. They prefer to own the building. So now we're in discussions about them leasing back from Region 8. But they actually had an offer on the table where the VA would be interested. They could have bought it, and they would have bought it for $3 or $4 million more than Region 8 paid for it, but Region 8 didn't want to give it up. And so we backtracked, and now we're talking about the leasing, which the VA does a lot of too. The VA has a whole lease back program too. So that's what I'm about, and that's why I'm here. And like I said, if you got any questions or anything, I'll be more than happy to share it with you guys.
Well, Chris, I thought I knew a lot about you, but I found out I didn't, and it's very interesting. A lot of good accomplishments.
We like the horses. Sharon said something to me about 14 years ago. She said, one of these days I'd like to have a horse farm and raise horses. I said, well, one of these days it is now. And we actually started building in Lucas, Texas, and built my first barn, which was an accomplishment. I mean, it was a pole barn. And learned a lot of lessons from there. So I built 2 more barns here. And I can't wait to build my next barn because I want to accomplish all the things I didn't do with those barns. Learning.
Was that place that you bought, was that where she and Urban used to live? Was that what was the Gage place when I worked for McKellar?
The Gage place was out on some of the land that was taken in by the mining companies. It was west of 271.
On the Old Parish Road.
Old Parish Road.
It was west of there, and they had a couple hundred. Oddly enough, when we bought the McKellar place, there are 6 chicken houses that were pulled off the property. 4 of those chicken houses were originally on the Gage Ranch. It was just, it's a small world, and things happen, I guess, for a reason. But the Mark McKellar bought the Gage Ranch after we put her in a little area and passed away. And Karen got out of that. Karen moved to Dallas, lived in Dallas for a while. But Mark had bought those. Mark and Bert Olds went into business together from Bird Enterprises, but they built the 6 chicken houses that are currently on 15 acres on the edge of my property. 4 of those chicken houses were actually moved from the original Gage residence. So it's got a long history in the community, at least Karen does, and Karen is a human. So full spoke and Dennis New is my brother-in-law, great guy. Never met anybody quite like Dennis. Very smart, caring, and giving guy. And it's a good family. I swear that Karen's mom is an angel on this earth. And never met anybody like her either. glad to be here, and I'm glad I've got the opportunity to work with you guys, gals, and I'm just saying, if you want to know anything else, let me know, and I appreciate any opportunity I get, and I thank you for this.
All right, any questions? Thanks for your time. Thanks, commissioners, for your time. That's all we have today. If anybody would like to move for adjournment.
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Hockaday, second by Commissioner Fields. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.